Welcome to the Book Review Podcast. Today we are diving into a topic that feels, well, more relevant than ever. The science of attention, productivity, and creativity in our constantly on world. We're going to unpack some really profound insights from Chris Bailey's remarkable book, Hyperfocus, How to Be More Productive in a World of Distraction. Now, this book isn't just, another time management guide. It's actually a deep dive into the psychology of how our brains work, and maybe more importantly, how we can reclaim our most valuable resource, our attention. Bailey himself is a productivity expert, and authors like Sean Aker, who wrote The Happiness Advantage, well, he called Hyperfocus a lifeline and even a stress-relieving salve. So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important actionable strategies to help you cut through all the noise, boost your productivity, and ultimately just find more joy in your day.
It's so true. And Bailey paints such a vivid picture of, well, our modern predicament right from the start, doesn't he? He describes watching people in a diner, sitting together, but everyone's eyes are just glued to their smartphones. It's quite a powerful visual. Really highlights how our attention is almost constantly engaged, maybe even when we're just lost in our own thoughts, but rarely where we actually intend it to be. It really makes you pause and think about your own habits,
Absolutely. And it really is astonishing when you think about the sheer volume of distraction we face today. Bailey points out, and this is wild, that we encounter more interruptions than at any other point in human history. There's this one statistic from a study he mentioned that just blew me away. We work for an average of just 40 seconds in front of a computer before we're either distracted or interrupted.
40 seconds.
40 seconds. It's barely enough time to even register what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And that leads really neatly into what he calls autopilot mode. I mean, think about it. Buying ketchup at the grocery store, or taking out the trash, even brushing your teeth. These are actions we often perform without any conscious thought, almost like instinct, right? Bailey estimates that as much as 40% of our daily actions are just habits.
Which is great for routines, yeah. Like imagine if you had to consciously think through every single step of brushing your teeth every morning. Or, drafting a simple email reply like, sounds good. It would be utterly exhausting.
Precisely. Autopilot is incredibly efficient for those routine, sort of low-stakes tasks. It saves our mental energy. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit problematic. While it's a blessing for the mundane stuff, it becomes a significant issue for managing our attention effectively. We end up just incredibly busy, responding to every notification, every little ping, but accomplishing very little of real significance. Bailey actually mentions he wrote this book out of his own personal necessity because he found himself getting more and more distracted, always busy, but not really making progress on the important things. It's a struggle I think many of us can relate to.
Totally. So if our brains are kind of wired for this autopilot and distraction is literally everywhere, how do we even begin to regain some control?
Yeah.
One of the core ideas Bailey introduces is the finite limits of our attention. We might feel like we can multitask, juggle everything at once, but he argues we can really only do maybe one or two complex tasks while simultaneously. That really challenges the whole do-it-all mentality, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this brings us to a really crucial concept he calls attentional space. You can sort of think of it as your brain's temporary scratch pad or its working memory, a bit like the RAM in your computer. It's the mental space where you hold information, manipulate it, connect ideas right in the moment. It's basically the stage where your conscious awareness plays out. And what's truly fascinating and often kind of surprising is just how limited and ephemeral this space actually is. The memory held in this scratch pad, well, it lasts on average just 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Wow. That's barely enough time to fully grasp a new thought before it just vanishes. It really highlights why, reading while you're trying to text just doesn't work.
Exactly. When you're truly engaged, like really paying attention to words on a page, when you're deep into a good book, there's almost no attentional space left for other demanding tasks. Your brain is basically full. He even notes this interesting little detail that our blinking patterns tend to align with natural breaks in our attention. It's like a tiny biological indicator of how engaged we actually are.
Huh. So it sounds like it all really boils down to being super intentional with where we put that limited attention. Bailey offers this really useful framework for categorizing our daily tasks. It's based on two criteria. Are they productive and are they attractive or engaging? This creates 4 types of tasks. You've got necessary work, which is productive but often, unattractive. Thinking doing those unavoidable budget reports.
Right. The stuff you have to.
Then there's unnecessary work, which is both unproductive and unattractive, like, aimlessly rearranging papers on your desk just to feel busy. And we've all done that.
Oh, yeah.
And then the ideal purposeful work, which is both productive and attractive, the stuff you enjoy, and that moves the needle.
And what's really insightful here, I think, is that truly productive people consistently focus their energy on that necessary and purposeful work. The trap. Well, that autopilot mode we talked about, combined with all the constant distraction, makes us fall prey to the unnecessary and just plain distracting tasks. We end up simply reacting to whatever pops up next instead of deliberately choosing what actually matters. It's the difference between just being busy and genuinely being effective.
And that deliberate, effective choice that leads us right to the heart of the book, the power of hyperfocus. Bailey defines it as deeply focusing on one important thing at a time to become, essentially, the most productive version of ourselves.
It almost sounds like a superpower, doesn't it? It really can feel that way. When you consistently practice hyperfocus, the benefits are, well, pretty profound. And surprisingly, they go way beyond just getting more done. Sure, you accomplish your intentions more often, but what's really transformative is the deeper focus you achieve and actually the surprising improvement in memory, because you're actively encoding that information properly. And maybe the most impactful benefit, especially in our overwhelmed world, is experiencing less guilt and doubt about what you should be doing. You know that feeling.
Oh, constantly.
Right. So you waste less time, you fall victim to fewer distractions, you gain greater mental clarity. And this reduced stress and stronger sense of purpose, it can even foster deeper, more meaningful relationships because you're actually giving people your full, undivided attention when you're with them.
Okay, so what does this hyperfocus actually feel like when you're in it? How do we know if we're, doing it right?
Well, when you're truly hyperfocusing, you're completely absorbed in that one task. You're not just avoiding distractions, you're actively dodging them, as he puts it. If an interruption does manage to break through, you find yourself able to get back on track pretty quickly. It's not a frantic, stressful rush either. You're working at a comfortable level of difficulty, challenging enough to keep you engaged, but not so hard that it feels overwhelming or intimidating. This is often where you can enter that amazing flow state, where hours just fly by feeling like minutes, and you might accomplish what feels like several hours of normal distracted work. You feel motivated, maybe even energized by it, rather than drained.
Okay, this sounds amazing. Let's unpack some of the practical strategies then for cultivating this kind of deep focus. We all grapple with them, our phones. Bailey basically suggests treating the smartphone as a productivity black hole. And his advice is pretty direct, literally put it out of sight. Leaving the device in another room might feel a bit drastic at first, but it's all about removing that temptation before it even arises.
Makes sense.
He even suggests this fun little experiment. Just pay attention, maybe for a day or two, to how often you instinctively pull out your phone. What are you feeling right before you do it? What compels you? That insight alone can be incredibly telling about your habits.
Absolutely. And closely related to that is minding your physical and digital environment. Where are you actually working? Is it truly conducive to focus, or are you constantly being interrupted or tempted? The most focus-conducive environments are usually those with the fewest potential distractions. So if possible, move to a quieter room, maybe a cafe if that works for you, or a library. And this raises a really important question. What external environmental cues are influencing your attention without you even realizing it? He uses the example of a bowl of jelly beans on a desk. If it's right there, you're probably more likely to eat them.
Guilty.
Right. Same principle applies to your phone sitting on the table or having a TV in your bedroom. Bailey also really stresses that a tidy physical space and a decluttered digital desktop are crucial for maintaining a clear attentional space. Clutter breeds distraction.
Okay, so environment is key. But even with the perfect setup, those internal distractions still pop up, right? Like, oh, did I remember to add milk to the grocery list while you're trying to write a report?
Definitely.
He recommends a really simple but powerful technique. Make a distractions list. Just keep a pen and notepad nearby, physical, not digital ideally, and jot down any internal distractions that pop into your head. Groceries, follow-ups, random new ideas, whatever. Writing them down captures those thoughts, gets them out of your head, and frees your mind to refocus on the actual task at hand. It's like telling your brain, okay, I've got that noted, now you can concentrate.
That's such a good one. And this leads to another really crucial strategy. Regularly questioning whether the content you're consuming, books, shows, podcasts, articles, is truly worth your precious attention. Bailey powerfully advises viewing descriptions, trailers, headlines, whatever, as pitches for your valuable time. He has this great line, "You are what you pay attention to." And your attention, it's a finite resource, maybe your most finite. We consume so much stuff out of sheer habit, without truly stopping to evaluate its actual worth. By being more selective, he argues, you can actually free up hours of extra time each day for what truly matters to you.
Wow, hours. Okay. And for those moments when you really need that concentrated boost, Bailey does suggest strategically consuming some caffeine, like a cup of coffee or tea. It can provide a really invaluable focus boost. Just remember that caffeine takes quite a while, like 8 to 14 hours to fully metabolize out of your system. So timing is kind of key if you want to avoid messing up your sleep later.
Good point. And to get the most out of the content you do choose to consume, he suggests grabbing a pen or a highlighter. This really promotes active consumption, not just passive scanning. Highlighting key points, underlining important sentences, even just rereading important parts helps you process those valuable nuggets more deeply and make them stick in your memory. He even suggests sharing those nuggets with others, like telling a friend or colleague about something interesting you learned. The act of teaching or explaining actually reinforces your own understanding.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Finally, what about when your focus inevitably wavers? Because it will waver, right? You can't just hyper-focus for 8 hours straight.
Right, nobody can.
He advises not trying to just power through it when you feel that mental fatigue setting in. Instead, step back for a few minutes and do something relatively mindless, like washing dishes, just staring out the window, people watching, or tidying up your desk a bit. These things can actually recharge your attention by letting your mind reset. And just like with the distractions list, if any useful ideas pop into your head during that brief, purposeful reset, capture them.
Yeah, this all ties into this larger, really transformative theme in the book, making that conscious shift from living on autopilot to actually working with intention. Because just being busy, filling your day with activity doesn't inherently mean you're being productive. True productivity, Bailey argues, is about accomplishing what you intend to accomplish. So if your genuine goal for the day is to have a truly relaxing day and you do nothing but relax, you've actually been productive according to your intention. It's about making deliberate choices in each moment, not just cramming more stuff into your schedule.
Okay, so how do we start setting those intentions effectively? Bailey introduces this wonderfully simple, yet really powerful daily ritual, the rule of 3.
Yeah.
Basically, at the start of each day, you choose the 3 most important things you want to accomplish by the end of that day. It brings instant clarity and focus. And it's wonderfully adaptable, too. Even if you have a really fixed schedule, like maybe you're attending a conference all day, your intention might be something specific, like connect meaningfully with 5 new people, rather than just passively attend talks.
Mm-hmm. And building on that idea of intention, Bailey urges us to identify what he calls consequential tasks. These are the tasks that, when you complete them, set off a kind of positive chain reaction. They often save you significant time or effort down the line. Think about, say, creating a comprehensive new hire guide. It takes time up front, but it saves countless hours of future onboarding. Or maybe automating a really repetitive task that currently eats up hours of your week. These might not feel super urgent in the moment, but they have a much greater long-term impact. Remembering that 4-task grid we talked about, necessary, purposeful, etc., can really help you spot these high-leverage activities.
And to really make those intentions stick, he gets into something called implementation intentions. These sound a bit formal, but they're basically highly specific if-then plans, like if it's my scheduled lunch break, then I will put on my running shoes and go for a 20-minute run. Studies actually show these can double or even triple your odds of following through. Yeah. Because they effectively put the initiation of the goal on autopilot. You've pre-decided what you'll do and when. There are a couple of caveats, though. You have to genuinely care about the intention for it to work. And for really easy, simple goals, they probably don't need to be quite that specific.
That makes sense. Now let's talk about controlling those distractions more directly by creating specific modes of working and, crucially, taming our devices. Bailey suggests thinking in terms of 2 main modes. First, a distraction-free mode for deep hyperfocus, where you're basically completely isolated to do your most demanding work. And second, a reduced distraction working mode for more collaborative work, where you still need to be somewhat available, but you set clear limits on interruptions.
Okay, so in that distraction-free mode, he outlines some pretty powerful personal tactics.
Yeah.
Using distraction blocking apps on your computer, putting all your devices on Do Not Disturb, and importantly, completely out of sight. Wearing noise-canceling headphones, even strategically timing your coffee for maximum focus during that block. He shares this incredible, slightly hilarious example from the company Sevenly, where the CEO actually equipped his team with lamps that signaled when they were in focus time.
Oh, yeah.
And literally gave them squirt guns to fend off interruptions.
Yeah.
It sounds extreme, but it's about creating clear, unapologetic boundaries for your attention when you need it most.
Squirt guns. I love that. And taming our devices is just absolutely critical because notifications are incredibly deceiving, aren't they? They feel urgent, important. They can suck you into what Bailey calls a digital vortex, where you easily lose half an hour, maybe more, without even realizing what happened. He offers some brilliant, simple strategies like minding the gaps. That is, consciously not reaching for your phone during those short waits, like when you're in line at the grocery store or waiting for the microwave. Or this other one, phone swapping with a friend when you're socializing. You literally hand your phone over to them, they hold yours, so you can actually be present in the conversation without that constant temptation buzzing in your pocket.
That's clever. He also emphasizes the power of using airplane mode strategically, not just on planes, but for truly focused work blocks, or even just quality time with family.
Yeah.
He even suggests, maybe controversially, buying a second, cheaper distractions device, like a basic iPad maybe, to intentionally compartmentalize all your distracting apps, social media, games, whatever. Then on your main phone, you create a folder, maybe called Mindless, for those apps, bury it somewhere, and ruthlessly prune any apps you don't genuinely use or get value from. This connects so well to that idea from Clayton Christensen, the jobs to be done framework, really questioning what job is each device, each app truly hired for in your life? What purpose does it actually serve?
That's a great way to think about it. And email, oh boy, email is another huge stressor, right? Consumes immense time and attention for so many of us. Bailey provides some incredibly practical tactics here too. First, only check email when you actually have the time, the attention, and the energy to deal with whatever comes in. Don't just glance at it constantly. Consider having 2 email accounts. One public-facing, one private, to help filter the incoming noise. Or maybe take an email holiday for a specific period when you need deep focus on a project, setting up a clear autoresponder. He also recommends the 5-sentence rule for keeping your own emails brief and to the point. And crucially, waiting maybe 10 minutes, maybe overnight, before sending important or emotionally charged messages. Give yourself time to cool down and reread. There was even one study he cites that found that people who went without email entirely for a week reported significantly reduced stress levels. Not surprising, really.
Not surprising at all. And then, of course, the other big time sink meetings. Bailey points out that knowledge workers spend, on average, 37% of their time in meetings.
Wow, 37%.
That's nearly 3 hours a day. For many people, meetings are incredibly costly in terms of collective attention if they're not run with real intention.
Yeah, the advice here is pretty straightforward, but like you said, often overlooked. First, never attend a meeting without a clear, specific agenda distributed beforehand. If there's no agenda, question if the meeting is even necessary. Second, question every single recurring meeting on your calendar. Don't just accept them by default. Do they still serve a purpose? Could they be shorter, less frequent, or maybe just an email update? Third, challenge the attendance list. Does everyone really need to be there, or are some people just included out of habit? Maybe they could just get the minutes later. And finally, if you do attend a meeting, commit to hyperfocusing during the meeting. Leave your devices behind or put them away. Actively participate, listen intently, and try to help move things along efficiently, maybe even aiming to finish early.
Good advice. Beyond just managing devices and meetings during the workday, Bailey suggests taking a more radical step sometimes. Disconnecting from the internet entirely for set periods, maybe for a full 24 hours on a Sunday, or taking advantage of a long plane journey where Wi-Fi is expensive or unavailable. He notes that research suggests about half of our online time is actually spent procrastinating anyway. So the perceived benefits of being constantly connected often aren't really worth the cost to our focus, our well-being, and our ability to do deep work. Disconnecting can leave you feeling truly refreshed and surprisingly productive.
And optimizing your environment, as we touched on, it really extends beyond just reducing digital noise. Your physical surroundings deeply impact your focus. Interestingly, some research shows that neat, organized environments tend to be more conducive to intense, focused work, while messier environments might paradoxically spark more creativity or divergent thinking. The key isn't necessarily one size fits all, but understanding how your environment influences your attention. So taking a few minutes to tidy up your physical desk and your digital desktop at the end of each day can be a really powerful cue to start fresh and focused the next morning.
What about music? Does it actually help or hurt our focus? Something I hear so many different opinions on.
Yeah, it's a common question. Bailey delves into this, and the research generally suggests that the most productive music for focus tends to be familiar, relatively simple, and crucially, without recognizable words or lyrics. He highlights Jerry Martin, who composed the music for games like The Sims and SimCity, that music was specifically designed to be in the background, sort of linear and supportive, helping you work without actively distracting you. Music seems to help primarily in noisy environments like open offices or cafes by essentially obscuring more complex, attention-grabbing distractions like hearing only one side of a phone conversation, that half-a-log, which your brain instinctively works overtime trying to fill in the gaps for. Music masks that.
Oh, that makes sense. He also brings in David Allen's famous getting things done principle. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. How does this idea of externalizing thoughts actually help our precious attentional space?
Oh, this is a huge one. It's a real game changer for many people. Using tools like calendars effectively, having well-structured to-do lists, those distraction lists we talked about earlier, and even maybe keeping dedicated worry lists, they all serve to free up your limited attentional space. When all those open loops, those nagging thoughts, unfinished tasks, and worries are moved out of your head and onto a trusted external system, paper or digital, you experience significantly less background anxiety, less guilt, worry, and doubt. Your brain no longer feels like it needs to constantly keep track of every little thing, allowing you to think more clearly and dedicate your full attention to the task right in front of you. It's incredibly liberating, actually.
And finally, Bailey makes this interesting point that reducing distractions actually allows for a slower, more purposeful working pace. That sounds really counterintuitive in our speed-obsessed world, where everyone feels like they need to go, go, go all the time.
It absolutely does sound counterintuitive at first, but Bailey points out that what you might initially perceive as losing in speed, you actually make up for exponentially in intentionality and awareness. When you're not constantly battling distractions, switching tasks, and then spending energy trying to regain focus, your mental energy just goes much, much further. You can often work for longer, more sustained periods without needing a break, and crucially, the quality of your output improves dramatically. It's ultimately about working smarter, more deeply, not just harder or faster.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about hyperfocus, that intense concentration. Now, let's flip the coin, because there's another really important side of attention that Bailey explores: scatterfocus, intentionally allowing your mind to wander. Why does our mind wander in the first place? Is it just random?
Well, it's not entirely random. Several factors tend to trigger mind wandering. Things like stress, definitely boredom, being in a chaotic or overly stimulating environment can do it. Also, personal concerns that are weighing on you, or maybe just questioning the inherent worth or meaning of the task you're currently trying to do. And simply having unused attentional space if a task isn't demanding enough, your mind looks for something else to do. The more free space you have mentally, the more prone you are to your mind just taking off on its own tangent.
It's fascinating because culturally, we seem to have this real aversion to scatterfocus, or maybe even just plain boredom, don't we?
Yeah.
Bailey cites this astonishing study where, get this, 71% of the men participating preferred to self-administer an electric shock rather than simply be left alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes.
Wow, really? Electric shock?
Yeah. Women fared a bit better. It was 26% for them, but still, we would literally rather feel physical pain than just sit quietly and be bored.
That says something powerful about our modern condition, I think. It truly is a testament to how accustomed, maybe even addicted, our minds have become to constant external stimulation. Bailey defines boredom not really as a lack of things to do, but more as that restless, uncomfortable feeling you get when you're transitioning to a lower level of stimulation than you're used to. The author himself did this interesting, kind of painful-sounding experiment where he intentionally forced himself to be bored for an hour every day, doing excruciatingly mundane tasks like reading the entire iTunes terms and conditions document,
My gosh.
or literally just staring at the ceiling. He found himself instinctively, almost desperately, searching for distractions, anything to occupy his attention. It vividly demonstrates our ingrained craving for external input. So his recommendation isn't necessarily to read terms and conditions, but to practice meta-awareness. That means regularly checking in with yourself. What's consuming my attention right now, especially when you feel that pull towards boredom or distraction. Just noticing it is the first step.
Okay, so if we can learn to tolerate, maybe even embrace, a bit of boredom or mind wandering, how does this deliberate scatterfocus actually lead to those incredible eureka moments or creative insights that we all crave?
This connects beautifully to something called the Zeigarnik effect. It's this psychological phenomenon which basically states that uncompleted tasks or unresolved problems tend to weigh more heavily on our minds. Our brains really crave closure. So when you're stuck on a difficult problem, even when you stop actively working on it, your mind often continues to process it subconsciously, kind of churning away in the background. Then, during periods of scatterfocus, especially during habitual low-effort activities like maybe organizing a bookshelf, taking a shower, going for a walk, your brain can suddenly make these unexpected, seemingly random connections between different ideas it's been holding, and boom, that leads to the flash of insight. He uses the example of that classic brain teaser, the unique 10-digit number puzzle. The answer often comes to people when they're doing something completely unrelated and mundane. Spoiler, it's the digits 0 through 9 listed in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Right. And the value of being in a rich environment for new cues like browsing in a bookstore, walking through a park, and people watching is also really crucial here. It gives your wandering mind fresh material, new dots to potentially connect in novel ways.
All this hyperfocus and then intentionally scatter focusing, it's quite mentally demanding overall. How do we effectively recharge our attention so we can actually keep doing this stuff sustainably?
You're absolutely right. Hyperfocus especially is tiring. It requires significant mental energy to regulate your behavior, resist distractions, and maintain that deep concentration. And eventually that pool of energy just gets depleted. When your attentional space starts to feel like it's contracting, when things feel harder than they should, that's basically your brain signaling that it's time to recharge.
What are the telltale signs then? How do we know when we really need to step back and take a proper break, not just switch to checking email?
Some key indicators include finding yourself frequently switching between tasks without really finishing anything, feeling like you're losing your grip on your main intentions for the day, working at a noticeably slower pace than usual, or catching yourself opting for more mindless, low-value tasks like aimlessly scrolling social media, and unintentionally slipping into scatterfocus mode, like your mind wandering off when you're actually trying to concentrate on something important. That's also a major sign that your attention reserves are running pretty low.
Okay, so what makes for an effective break? Because often I think we just default to scrolling our phones, which probably isn't that restorative.
Right, that's usually more distraction, not restoration. A truly refreshing break, according to Bailey and the research he cites, should be relatively low effort, something you genuinely want to do, not a chore you feel you should do, and ideally something different from your main work. Think about taking a short walk, especially in nature if possible. Light exercise, meditating for a few minutes, reading something purely for fun, or genuinely connecting and socializing with colleagues or loved ones. These types of activities allow for that productive mind wandering we just talked about, and they actively re-energize you for when you return to your focused work. Breaks aren't about escaping work through mindless distraction. They're really about purposeful restoration of your mental resources.
That's a great distinction. Is there an optimal time or duration for these breaks? Like, should we be setting timers?
Well, individual needs definitely vary, but he does cite one interesting study from DeskTime, an app that tracks computer usage. They found that their most productive users tended to take roughly a 17-minute break after every 15 minutes or so of focused work.
52 on, 17 off. Interesting rhythm.
Yeah, but what's really crucial to remember, and Bailey emphasizes it strongly, is that resting isn't wasting time, it's consciously exchanging time for energy. Also, don't underestimate the impact of sleep. A significant sleep deficit can actually shrink your available attentional space by up to 60%. That makes complex tasks feel twice as long and incredibly draining. You're almost always better off working fewer total hours, but being well-rested and fully present during those hours. He even cheekily suggests you should actually feel guilty about not taking breaks because of the profound benefits they offer your productivity and well-being in the long run.
Okay, guilt about not taking breaks, I like that. This all seems so intricately tied to our overall well-being and happiness, doesn't it? What's the specific connection Bailey makes between our mood and our ability to manage attention?
Oh, there's a very strong and cyclical link. Basically, happiness and positive affect, feeling good, significantly boosts your ability to manage your attention effectively. It aids productivity, it boosts creativity. Conversely, being in a negative mood actually shrinks your attentional space, making it harder to focus. It increases unwanted mind wandering, often leaping on negative thoughts about the past, and it definitely decreases overall productivity. It just makes you far less resilient to distractions, and it's harder to pull yourself back onto task when you do get derailed.
Bailey even shares the results of a study that identified the top 5 activities that consistently made participants happiest. And they're maybe not what you'd first think for a productivity book. They were. Listening to music, playing, like games or sports, talking and investing in relationships, exercising and making love.
Right. It underscores that our well-being, which fuels focus, comes from a holistic place, not just work optimization. And Sean Achor, whom you mentioned right at the start, adds some fantastic, simple, science-backed strategies for actively bolstering happiness, which resonate perfectly with Bailey's findings. Things like recalling 3 specific things you're grateful for each day, journaling about one positive experience you had, meditating for just a few minutes, and performing small, random acts of kindness for others. These aren't just, fluffy, feel-good practices. They've been shown to literally widen your attentional space, make you more open to new ideas, and improve your capacity for deep focus.
That's powerful stuff. Okay, shifting gears just a little bit towards the end here. Bailey talks about deliberately collecting dots, which is his metaphor for how we consume information in this world of, endless content. He makes the point that while our brain's long-term storage is virtually limitless, our attention is severely restricted. So deliberate consumption is crucial. How do we even begin to measure the value of an informational dot?
That's a brilliant question, and he offers a neat framework. Bailey explains that the most valuable dots are those that are both useful and entertaining. Think of a really great, engaging TED Talk or a well-written, practical nonfiction book. Useful information is actionable. It helps you achieve your goals or understand the world better. And its entertainment value keeps you genuinely engaged enough to actually absorb it. He then categorizes information into 4 buckets. Useful, high use, maybe low-mid entertainment. Balanced, high use, high entertainment, the sweet spot. Entertaining, low use, high entertainment. And unfortunately, trashy, low use, low entertainment, the stuff we consume out of habit but don't really enjoy or benefit from. The general actionable rule is pretty straightforward. Try to consciously consume more from the useful and balanced categories and significantly less from the trashy pile.
Okay, so beyond just thinking about those categories, how do we actually implement this? How do we become better, more intentional information consumers day to day?
He offers several really practical, actionable ideas. First, consciously choose to consume things you deeply care about, even if others don't necessarily see the immediate value. Follow your curiosity. Second, deliberately eliminate some trash from your diet. Pick maybe just 1 or 2 items, a website you scroll mindlessly, a show you watch out of habit that genuinely don't bring you enjoyment or value, and just cut them out. Third, intentionally add more valuable and maybe slightly challenging content. Read that book you've been meaning to. Subscribe to a more thoughtful newsletter. Fourth, if you're going to veg out, do it with intention. Decide beforehand what you'll watch and for how long. Rather than just flipping channels or scrolling endlessly, set some criteria for your passive consumption time.
I like that, intentional vegging.
Right. Also, regularly reevaluate content while you're consuming it. Don't feel obligated to finish a book or article or show that's just not delivering value simply because you started it. Your time is too precious. Remember to view all content descriptions, headlines, trailers as those pitches for your attention. Be a discerning customer. He also suggests zooming out occasionally to visualize your overall consumption habits. Maybe even roughly track where your attention goes online for a day. It can be eye-opening. Actively invest in serendipity. Expose yourself to new, potentially random ideas. Click Wikipedia's random article button. Take a class in a completely new subject. Talk to people outside your usual circles. And finally, strategically double down on what you're already good at or know a lot about. Deepening your existing expertise is often a very high-value use of your attention.
It really paints this picture of the magic of accumulated knowledge, doesn't it? Bailey brings in that famous Arthur C. Clarke quote, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And he applies it not just to literal technology, but to really complex decisions or brilliant ideas. It's not actual magic, he argues. It's the stunning result of connecting a vast, intricate network of these dots over time through experience and learning.
That's exactly right. Geniuses, he suggests, aren't just born with some inherent magical ability we don't have. They accumulate and crucially connect a massive number of these informational dots through vast amounts of experience and deliberate practice. Think of the 10,000-hour rule idea applied to figures like Einstein or Mozart. Einstein, for example, famously played the violin for hours on end. Bailey suggests this likely served as a powerful form of habitual scatterfocus for him, allowing his mind to wander productively and make those profound, unexpected connections that led to his breakthroughs. He wasn't just born a genius, he actively cultivated his unique way of thinking and connecting ideas over decades.
Wow. So this entire deep dive really is ultimately about giving you the tools and the mindset to intentionally sharpen your axe, as Abraham Lincoln famously put it. It's about making better, more conscious, more deliberate use of your single most valuable, most finite, and truly life-shaping resource, your attention. Thanks for listening to the Book Review Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. See you next time.